We are seeing the pandemic change our world in manifestly new ways. The American president now openly floating the idea that the US election in November should be delayed. Andrew Yang is a CNN political commentator who ran for the Democratic nomination for US president earlier this year. He joins us now from New York. Our viewers are seeing a tweet from Donald Trump in the past hour openly floating the idea of a delay to the US election. Your reaction?
Well, this is just the latest attempt to try and distract the American people from the fact that he's mishandled the coronavirus pandemic, and he sees that he's down to Joe Biden by double digits in many polls. So when you're in that situation, you'll grasp at any straw. But happily, we expect that this is just going to be yet another tweet that excites a very small handful of people, but inflames others, and will help, if anything, bolster the case that we need to have this election as soon as possible and then turn over a new page in this country.
I mean, as I understand it, Donald Trump cannot overturn the election. It requires 2/3 of the states to agree to do so.
That's exactly right. That's why it's just the latest desperate thrashing about of a losing candidate. And when you're in that position and when you prioritize winning as much as Donald Trump does, he will grasp at anything that might give him a chance at victory, because he sees that his chances are plummeting daily. 72% of Americans believe that this is the worst time they've ever lived in recorded memory, which is a terrible sign for an incumbent. That's the opposite of a 4 more years type of atmosphere. And that's obvious given how much America is suffering right now, economically, socially, and through this public health crisis that we are handling very poorly.
I mean, there will be viewers who say you would say that, wouldn't you? You ran for the Democratic nomination. We are 96 days away from the American election as we speak now. You have been supporting Joe Biden. What does he need to do next, Andrew?
Well, Joe has been rising in the polls in large part because people are dissatisfied with the leadership they're seeing from Trump, who's whipsawed in various ways on wearing masks and other public health measures. And I'm a parent, Becky, and we're all looking at what the heck is going to happen with schools in September. So Trump is failing a test of leadership, and Joe is a very, very well-known figure in American life. He was the vice president for 8 years. He presents a sort of steady leadership and return to normalcy that right now many, many Americans are hungering for. Now, Joe just announced a very, very ambitious, aggressive plan to combat climate change, and he's going to be announcing other initiatives in the days to come. But the fact is he's winning because people are very, very familiar with and comfortable with Joe and his style of leadership that will help bring people together.
Are you being offered a place in a Joe Biden administration, sir?
I'm focused on helping Joe win because I think another Trump term would be an utter disaster for this country. But I'm on the record saying that if I have a chance to solve some of the problems I ran for president on, I would be thrilled because I'm a patriot, I'm a parent, I just want to do everything I can for this country. And so in a Biden administration, if I had that opportunity, I would definitely jump at the chance.
Have you been offered a position?
Well, we've had conversations, but again, you can't count your chickens before they're hatched. The number one goal is to make sure that Joe Biden is our next president.
The US has just reported its worst plunge in economic history, a 30% drop. You have said it is, quote, a ridiculous fantasy to think that the US economy will snap back to normal post-pandemic. How bad do you believe the impact of COVID-19 will be?
It's catastrophic. You can't overstate it. And here in the States, it's been rolling on for months. You have depression-era levels of unemployment in many sectors. And economists have projected, Becky, that we've lost 42% of these jobs for good. That's why it's such a ridiculous fantasy to think that the economy is going to snap back into place if economists are suggesting that almost half of these jobs will never return. So you're looking at permanent job losses at twice the level of the Great Recession, which itself took 10 years or so for us to dig out from under. So at this point, we should be enacting massive stimulus measures and doing everything we can to try and shore up existing opportunities and create more jobs for millions of Americans. A massive infrastructure project would be entirely appropriate. Bailing out the states so they don't fire people would be the right move. Putting cash into people's hands, which I championed as a candidate, would be the right move. 74% of Americans agree that we should be putting stimulus cash into consumers' hands right now to help families manage this crisis. So you just can't overstate the economic carnage in the American labor market and economy right now, unfortunately.
Your signature issue is universal basic income, which, given the unemployment fueled by this pandemic, couldn't be more prescient, as you rightly pointed out. Congress is now in discussions about not one but a second $1,200 payment. Would that at least satisfy you that government was working in the right direction?
These payments should be unconditional and should be regular. The problem with the $1,200 stimulus payment in April is that that money was spent and dried up in a matter of days or weeks at the most, and then people had to figure out how they were going to keep a roof over their head. Over 30% of Americans had trouble managing housing payments last month, and that was when we still had benefits in place. So to me, $1,200 would be a great step if it came in on a regular basis and Americans actually could rely upon it moving forward rather than a one-time payment.
Mijn probleemoplosser tegen mieren. Pokon, je